Hey guys, what's up? My name is Dom. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, I typically make bookish content, movie content, and anything else in between because I like to do whatever I want on this channel, and tonight you're going to get both movie and TV show content. For today's video, we are going to wrap up everything I watched in January, whether it's a movie or a TV show or a TV show that I have not even completed yet, but I've seen a few episodes. We could just jump right into it. I watched 3 movies in January, and I completed 2 TV shows in January, and I was also in the middle of 2 others. So the first movie I watched in January is called The Seeker of Kells, and it's about a boy who's being trained as a Christian monk. They are working on the Book of Kells, and then he comes across a fae, and they work together trying to find like the ink and all the magic to create the Book of Kells, and they also become best friends. And then another subplot is that they live within these walls, and enemy invaders are trying to knock down those walls. I was interested in this movie because I have seen the Book of Kells when I visited Ireland, so when I found out there was kind of a movie that involved all that, I was intrigued because the Book of Kells are very interesting. This movie was cute, but it was like nothing too spectacular in the end. I think I just may be out of the age range because the dynamic between the boy, whose name I think was Brennan.
Nope, it was Brendan.
And then the fae Aisling.
Nope, it's Aisling.
It was obviously targeted for a younger audience, and I'm watching it as an adult. Like, I understood what vibe they were going for, but I didn't really connect with it the way they probably wanted their audience to. That being said, Aisling was a very cute character, had a very cute singing voice because she does sing at one point. Brennan was a nice character too, and again, their friendship was cute, just didn't connect with it, but it was cute nonetheless. And then when it comes to the animation of this movie, it was really neat to look at. Like, it's not the prettiest animation I've ever seen, but I still at the same time couldn't look away just because of the geometry of it. Like, I guess geometry is the word I'm looking for, just because the way the shapes fit with each other was so cool, and I just could not look away. Like, I never would have thought to make a background like that. And the way they animated Aisling, like, along with like the geometry of the backgrounds, something about Aisling was just so mesmerizing to watch, especially the way her hair flowed. They did such a good job, especially because I know when this movie came out, like, Cartoon Saloon was still really small, so they probably didn't have the budget they have now, and they definitely don't have like a Disney or a DreamWorks budget, and yet it was still so, you wouldn't like know that. Like, it was still just so well done. The most fascinating part of this movie, and actually like my favorite part, was the intermingling of 2 different religions. This movie has both Christianity and then also Celtic folklore. The reason I found the connection of the 2 religions so interesting was because there was actually no point of contention between the 2 characters. And the reason I find that so interesting is just because when I went to Ireland, every tour I was on brought up religion in some way. But from what I gathered from these tour guides, what they were saying is that religion's still a huge point of contention in Ireland. And I'm basing this off of what tour guide said. I don't know if like the average Irish citizen would agree with this, so probably take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. But I know also, just knowing some of the Irish history that I do know about, like, religion is huge. So when I heard this movie was going to mix both Christianity with Celtic folklore, I was kind of expecting both sides to hate each other. But that never happened, and I really appreciated that, and I actually liked seeing the 2 different belief systems come together and be friends. In the end, I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Cute. Again, nothing spectacular. The final fun fact is that like the father figure of Brennan is played by the same guy who plays Mad Eye Moody. So the second movie I watched in January is called Belle. This movie came out in Japan in July of 2021, and it's essentially a Beauty and the Beast retelling. This girl who is very, very quiet in the real world, she joins this app called You, and then her avatar is this person named Belle, and she feels like in the universe of You, she could sing again, which she doesn't feel like she could do in the real world. Belle eventually becomes a megastar, and then she comes across this dragon avatar that everyone for some reason wants to kill, but she's fascinated and wants to get to know him. When I first saw the trailer, I was so mesmerized by the amazing animation, and that trailer was only 60 seconds long, or like 70 seconds, and I could not look away. The singing was great, so I was so excited to see this movie, and I expected to walk out of that theater giving it 5 out of 5 stars. But unfortunately, I only gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. The pacing was my biggest issue with this movie. In the first half of the movie, I found the pacing to be really, really off. It was very jumpy. The way the director would cut to different scenes was kind of jarring. it was so abrupt at times, and it led to me not being able to connect to any of our characters except the main character. The main character I was able to connect to some degree, not to the amount I wanted to, but like our side characters, I didn't really care for them because of how weird that pacing was in the first half. But I kind of wanted to know more about Shinobu. I wanted to know more about her best friend. I wanted to know more about this girl that the whole school is jealous of, because they all come into play near the end, but I didn't care about them because there wasn't enough characterization to make me care. So I thought the first half of the movie was really lacking in that regard. But despite all that, again, I did like our main character despite being a crybaby. And yes, that, like, I know that's kind of like a juvenile word to describe her with, but like, she very much was a crybaby. I love the Beauty and the Beast retellings. So it's a retelling of the Disney story, not really the Grimm's Brothers fairy tale. And speaking of Disney, like, a big fun fact is that Belle's character design was actually designed by a Disney animator, and the pacing of the last half of the movie was a lot better. Like, once the Beast was introduced and we got to know him more, that's when I started enjoying the movie more, because now I could finally understand what Suzu's motive was. And I even cried in the last half. There's a scene that's gut-wrenching. Like, it was rough to watch it. And despite my issues with like the writing, like some of the animation in this movie is incredible, and that's actually the main reason why I went to go watch this movie, just because that trailer was so mesmerizing. But some of this animation just blew me away, especially in the last half. The last half of this movie is just so much better than the first half. And this movie is a musical, so there's a lot of singing involved, and some of those songs were phenomenal. It was just an incredible, there was one song called, it's like A Million Miles Away, I think, and watching that on screen, like, it's one thing to listen to it, but listening to it while watching the scene play out, and the animation of that scene specifically was absolutely incredible. It was a phenomenal experience to go through in the theater, and I'm so glad I saw that scene specifically in my theater chair in an AMC theater. These songs get stuck in my head constantly, and the most amazing thing about it is that I've heard the soundtrack both in Japanese and English. They found two actresses that sound so similar to each other, because so one of my main issues with anime and why I can't go dubbed is because I get so used to the Japanese voices that becomes their voice. Like, if I were to watch, like, Tanjiro's Japanese actor, like, that's Tanjiro, and I'm talking about Demon Slayer here. Like, if I were to switch over to the English dubbed of Demon Slayer, like, that guy's not Tanjiro. That's not Tanjiro speaking. Does that make sense? Like, the voice becomes their character. But listening to the Japanese and the English versions of Belle, I had no issue with the dub, because they sound so similar. I actually thought the Japanese voice actress was the English voice actress. I thought they used the same person, but no, they used two different people. And that's actually amazing to me. And I feel like by finding someone with a similar voice, like, you're gonna portray the same themes and emotions that the original, like, Japanese director was going for. I'll post, like, maybe like 5 to 10 second clips of both the Japanese and the English version of a song, just so you have an idea of what I'm talking about. Again, the second half of this movie is a lot better than the first half. If you're on, like, the same boat as me, I do recommend just pushing through the first half to get to that last half, because it's a punch in the gut, amazing animation, and then amazing singing, and I love it. I love the last half so much, and it's like upsetting to me that I didn't really like the first half. But yeah, in the end, I am a little disappointed I didn't love this movie as much as I thought I would, but I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars, so at the end of the day, it was still a good movie. The last movie I watched in January is Cartoon Saloon's second feature film, and that is Song of the Sea. This is about a boy who has a mute sister, and he discovers that she is a selkie, and she has to sing a song in order to save the spirits of these creatures in Irish folklore. This movie was an instant 5 out of 5 star for me. I loved it so much. This movie's so cute. It's full of all that Irish Celtic folklore that I was looking for, and the singing and the music. So good. I really liked how the tension between the two siblings was done. So Ben's mother disappeared when his sister Saoirse was born, and because of that, he kind of has some contention with her. But despite that, Saoirse still loves him. She tries to do anything she can to make him smile and to make him feel better. And I really do like that dynamic. And despite Ben's contention with his sister, he still wants to do anything he can to help save her. This movie has a lot of humor to it, and it has a lot of dramatic elements as well, and I think it balanced it out really well. Like, the beginning of the movie is very humorous, and it's to get you excited for this adventure, but then when you finally come across the villain, you are as scared as our characters Ben and Saoirse. And then the villain, they also, despite being like a children's movie, and oftentimes children's movies have a very black and white villain. I thought this villain was complex for a children's movie. Her motives were clear. You understood why she was doing what she was doing. And kind of near the end there, you kind of actually sympathize with her. I cried like 3 times in this movie because I'm a crybaby. So the scenes that made me cry weren't anything like original. I've seen them in other movies before, but they're just the tropes that always get me. I always fall for them. My favorite part of this film, and it's not a spoiler, so I'm just gonna say it, my favorite part is when they started singing Dulaman, because that's one of my favorite Irish folk songs. I literally screamed. So when they were singing the first part in English, and I was like, I recognize this tune, and I can't understand why. But then they got to the chorus, and I screamed. I like flapped my hands. I was literally sitting there jumping in my seat doing this because I was just so excited. I was not expecting my favorite Irish folk song to be in this movie. And it made you like want to sing and dance along. Like the whole thing with this movie, like I was constantly dancing along to the music. It's the same composer as the guy who did Coraline, which I was kind of not expecting, but he has a way of just making me dance in my seat. And in the end, this movie just makes me want to go back to Ireland. There's more about this movie I really want to talk about. Like I really want to talk about the end and how much I liked how that was handled. But that is spoiler territory, so I will not. But please watch this movie, because it got me in my feels, and I cannot wait to go back to Ireland one day, thanks to this movie. The first TV show I finished in January was Arcane League of Legends. I heard nothing but good things about this, so I had to jump right into it. I was a little hesitant because I've never played League of Legends in my life, and I have no desire to, but this show did not disappoint. It takes multiple League of Legends characters and gives them a backstory, which is really all I can say just because there's so many different plots going on in the show. It's hard to make one concise summary. I will say though, you do not need to have played League of Legends to understand this show. Again, I've never played in my life, I've never watched anyone play in my life, and I understood perfectly what was going on. This show is a masterpiece in storytelling. Every episode had me in a chokehold. I could not stop watching. Like, the littlest details were important. Another reason I think the show is a masterpiece of storytelling is because there's so many tropes I expected them to use, and then they didn't, and I mean that in the best way possible. And this is when I'm going to get into spoiler territory, so I'll put like spoilers somewhere on the screen. But one of the tropes I was expecting them to follow was Victor being a bad guy. When they introduced Victor, he was kind of shady, and he is handicapped, and I've noticed in a lot of TV shows, the handicapped characters that are introduced as good guys, there's always some plot twist that makes them the bad guy. I was waiting for that to happen, and then it never did. Victor stayed the good guy, and I love that, I respect that, and I'm glad they didn't take the tropey route. Another trope was Silco. I was 100% expecting him to turn his back on Jinx. One of the reasons I was expecting that was because a lot of people told me, oh, you love Azula as a character, you'll love Jinx, they're very similar. Which I kind of, in a way, I agree with it and disagree with that statement at the same time, but moving on. And because of, you know, Azula's dynamic with her father and how Ozai never actually loved her and, you know, eventually turned his back on her, I was expecting Silco to take that same route. Another reason I was expecting that trope to happen was just because it does happen so often. And then at the end of the show, that doesn't happen. Silco actually loved Jinx the whole time. He always thought of her as a daughter, and I love that. And his final lines made me cry. So I mean this in the best way possible. I'm so glad the show didn't take the typical route with their tropes. It's the way they wrote them out too. They wrote them out making you think that you were going to take those routes, and then the plot twist was that they never did, and it's just a punch in the gut. It's also one of those shows where you don't know who to root for, you don't know who to hate. Like every character in the show is just a victim of their circumstances. They handled Jinx's trauma so well. I know Jinx in the League of Legends game, she's like this irredeemable crazy Harley Quinn type person, and I was kind of expecting that to happen in the show. Like, once that traumatic event happened, I was expecting the next episode for her to be kind of just batshit irredeemably insane, but she wasn't. There was an actual development towards that, and I appreciate that because we actually got to see her guilt of what happened. Through that trauma, you find out who she loved, and in the end, all she wanted was for someone to love her, and there's just something about that character trope that I love so much. You know, the end of the season is so heartbreaking, and I truly wonder where season 2 is going to take us, because I know season 2 has been confirmed, but at this point, I just can't imagine what's going to happen in season 2. And I just want to give Jinx a hug. Oh my god. Of course, I have to talk about the animation of the show. That was one of the things that piqued my interest, was how everything's animated. The best part about it is that it made me feel like I was playing a video game. Just the way things were framed, the way the characters were interact. Like, at times I thought I was the one controlling them. Like, I wasn't just sitting there. Like, I thought I had a controller in my hands. And I think that's an excellent way of storytelling, especially a story that's based off a game. That was a very smart move on the writer's part. One thing I can think of specifically when it comes to how great the animation is the end of episode 3, when Powder/Jinx is in distress. Just when she's crying and sniffling, the way her body jumps a little. They did an excellent, and the voice actress helps with this too, they did an excellent job at capturing a child in distress when they're just so, they're so upset they just don't know what to do. And it's honestly one of the most realistic depictions of a human being I've ever seen in animation. The sound engineering of the show is also insane. This 100% just could be my speakers and the speakers I have hooked up to my TV, but no other show has ever made me feel like I was sitting in a movie theater the way this one did. Like, just the booms and like the background noise, and you could hear literally everything. Like, there's one scene specifically, again, I always go back to specific scenes, but it's when Jinx is listening to Get Jinx, and I could hear the leather of her clothes as she's moving about, and I could hear her nails against like that glass ball thing. It's things you don't think about being in shows until you actually hear and see them happening. Like, such minute details, but it's what makes the show so great. My last comment about this show is that it has a banger soundtrack, and each song worked so well for every scene it was in. Guns for Hire, chills down my spine. Playground, it really captured the energy of the lanes. The song that plays at the end of episode 9 is the reason that ending is just so heartbreaking. It's because of the lyrics, and they fit Jinx so well. I want to know who worked on the show, because everyone who worked on the show is a genius. The writers, amazing. The animators, amazing. The person who picked the score and put the score and the soundtracks together, y'all know your stuff. Like, this show, I have nothing but good things to say about the show. I can't believe I loved it as much as I did. If you have not seen Arcane, you need to watch it. I'm still thinking about it, and I cannot wait until season 2. The last show I completed in January was an anime called Your Lie in April. This is about a boy who is a pianist but doesn't play anymore, and he eventually falls in love with a girl who is a violinist. I'm iffy on this one. First off, I would have liked this so much better if I was in late middle school, early high school, because the romance is very juvenile, which is obviously not its fault. I'm just not the target audience anymore. I just heard so many good things about this, so people are like, watch it, and like, I didn't really enjoy it. And the big reason was because I wasn't really a huge fan of the love interest. Didn't really like her. I found her to be kind of annoying. There's one character I can't stand, it's Kosei's mom. I don't understand what the anime was going for. I don't know, like, I truly don't know if they wanted you to feel bad for her or not. I couldn't stand her. No matter how many good moments they showed of her, I don't like her. I felt bad for Kosei, which I'm leaning towards that was their point. Like, they didn't necessarily want you to feel for the mom. They just wanted you to feel for Kosei, who I did feel sorry for. So in that regard, if that was the point they were going for, then they did achieve that. I wanted to give Kosei a huge hug. Like, he's adorable. He's not one of the best protagonists I've ever seen, but he is cute, and I wanted to give him a hug. I will say the music in this anime is gorgeous, and there's a lot of gorgeous playing that I wish I myself could do. I just wish I understood more about music, because they make comments where here I am watching this anime about music. I'm listening to Kosei play the piano, and I'm like, wow, he sounds really good. And then you have like half the characters being like, your notes are a little too sharp. And I'm like, great. Could not have guessed that. So then Kosei would play the piece again. They're like, oh my god, much better. And meanwhile, I'm sitting there like, sounds the same to me. So I wish I had more of a background in music to understand those parts of the show, because that was part of the humor, like the characters playing notes wrong, but I couldn't hear that, so like some of the humor went over my head. But yeah, it was like okay. Like I have no desire to ever watch this again. I don't regret watching it, but it's also like I could have lived my whole life without watching this anime. I'm not impressed, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So, I mean, the ending was alright. There are 2 other shows I watched in January. They have not been completed. They are still going through the seasons. One of them is Demon Slayer. The Entertainment District arc is almost done. I'm still pissed with the cliffhanger of the last episode, but I'm loving this show. It's very intense compared to the other arcs. I love the dynamic between Daki and Gyutaro, and like Nezuko this season. Bad bitch energy, we stand. And of course the other show is Attack on Titan. Season 4 part 2 started airing about, I think, January 9th. Fuck this show. It is just nothing but plot twist after plot twist, and it always ends at a cliffhanger. It makes me so angry, and I have no words for the direction the show is going in, and I mean that in the best way possible. Like, I'm vastly enjoying this. I just get so mad, and I got mad at Demon Slayer too. These shows have a way of ending on cliffhangers, and then I have to wait a week for the next episode to come out. I could always read the manga, but then it's not as exciting. Like, the wait is not as exciting, and I want to go into these episodes not knowing what's going to happen, and I'm screaming. And it's funny, everything I watched in January's animation, it kind of just hit me. And I'm getting to the point in my anime phase where I am beginning to recognize actors. And all these shows share voice actors. 2 of these shows have Yuki Kaji, so Attack on Titan and Your Lie in April. 2 of these shows have how do you say her name? Sori Hayami, and that's Demon Slayer and Your Lie in April. All 3 anime I watched this month have some guy's name I can't remember, but he's Koze in Your Lie in April, he's Tanjiro in Demon Slayer, and he's Falco in Attack on Titan. Make that bank, dude. They're all making bank. And that is it for this video. I'm going to try to rush this outro because my battery's dying. Let me know down below what shows and movies you guys were watching in January. If you liked this video, give it a big thumbs up, comment, subscribe. Y'all know the drill. And without further ado, I'm going to peace out and I'll see you guys later. Ciao, tutti.